So it's been another month, so now it's time for another poster roundup. So just in case you're new here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over each poster that I posted this month, as well as any that I was supposed to post this month, and kind of just do a post-mortem on them. What I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, what I think I could have done better, and just my general thoughts. So hopefully through this video, you'll be able to learn something from my own experience, as well as see some cool work. But now that that's all out of the way, let's get into the video. All right, so this is the very first post that I posted this month. I know I've said it here before, but I'm just gonna say it again. I'm actually 10 weeks ahead of whatever I'm posting. So it's literally been 10 or more weeks since I actually made this design. And honestly, the only thing I feel whenever I look at this design is, it's okay. Like, I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily wrong with the design or something that I just really don't like. I just don't think it's, anything special. I think what I did to combine the word Corvus with the photography is pretty cool and works really well. And it does have a pretty cool grungy kind of aesthetic, but other than that, I don't know if there's really much else to say. It's all right. It works for what it is, and it was fun to make, but I don't think, this is winning me any awards or anything crazy like that. Now this design, I feel a little torn on. Part of me still thinks it's really cool. Part of me is like, it's all right. And I'm not really sure. I remember having a lot of fun playing with typography in this way, and I do think it looks pretty cool. Maybe it's not the best, but I do think it's interesting at least. And I also like how the word volts is in white, and so it kind of bleeds into the empty space of the page. And so I think it creates a unique shape that you wouldn't normally get if it was in black or something like that. The composition of it is fine. All the elements I used were pretty good. I just don't know if it's really anything to hit home about. Although I would say I think what I did do good on this was kind of nailing the concept. It definitely has that kind of industrial kind of voltage feel to it. So in that regard, I'd say I'd pretty much nailed it. So this was the first design that I didn't post this month. Now, while I don't think this is a bad design, the reason I didn't post it is because it was more of an experiment for myself, more than I felt like it was a completed design that I felt proud about. I've seen a lot of similar kind of designs, and I just kind of wanted to try it for myself. It's something that I don't typically do, and I wanted to kind of give it a shot and see how hard it would be and see if I could learn anything from it. And so this was just me kind of playing around with that design aesthetic and seeing if I could nail it. And while generally I think I did pretty good, I don't think I did the design enough justice in order to feel comfortable posting it. I feel like I did a good job at nailing the overall aesthetic, but in terms of the details and really getting it to feel exactly the way that I wanted to in my head, or the way that I might compare it to other people's work, it just didn't quite measure up. So this is a design that I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I can't remember who it was by, but I remember seeing a post and it just had the word wasp, I think 2 or 3 times in big bold letters. And so that's what made me think about doing this concept right here. So I kind of just wanted to take that idea and do my own version of it and just kind of see what it would look like. But other than that, I really don't have much else to say about this design. I think it looks pretty good. Turned out pretty well, but I just feel like it's not something that really represents my best work or what I'm capable of. All right, so this design was a fun one to make. So at the time of making this, I was reading David Carson's Second Sight, which is a really great book. You should definitely check it out if you can. But a lot of what he talks about in that book is designing with intuition. And so that's kind of what I was trying to do here. Just kind of go with my gut feeling, try not to think about things too much, and just do what I felt right in the moment. But I do know that I started with the image that I have at the bottom. Something about it just made me want to put it at the bottom and kind of hide it and seclude it, and then just have this kind of text just haphazard over some of it. And I think for the most part, this is pretty close to what I had in mind whenever I was making it. So I think as far as an experiment just trying to design with intuition, I'd say this is pretty good. So this design was pretty simple, but it was also pretty fun. I've seen a few different collages and posters where they'll take someone's face and they'll rip it off, or they'll put something on top of it. And I've always thought that was really interesting. And I kind of wanted to try to do that, but in my own way. And something that I really love to kind of mess around with are these package labels. And I thought this would be the perfect thing to put over someone's face in order to kind of obscure them and create a kind of unique looking design. But of course, doing just that probably wouldn't make the design feel complete. So of course I had to add a couple extra kind of grungy industrial elements just to kind of tie the whole thing together. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So this design is one that I'm actually really happy with. It first started out with the photo of the hands, and I was trying to think what kind of would go with that, and I just couldn't really get something. And so I just started looking up some quotes about lying or, deception, that kind of thing. And then I came across this quote And I was like, yep, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But I really just wanted to take the time just to kind of experiment with type, see what I could come up with, you know, not hold back in any way. And so you kind of get this mishmash of different font sizes and weights and different fonts. And I think together it makes it look really cool. I don't think this was one of my more popular posts from this month, but I don't care. I think this is a good poster. So this was another fun and interesting poster that I made. So I found this photo as well as the one from a couple posters ago, where it's kind of this kind of distorted and stretched photography. And I really liked it, and it kind of gave me this nostalgic feeling. You know, like you're looking through an old camcorder, but in this case it's kind of distorted. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do. You know, how can I take something that's nostalgic and then distort it? And I remember spending a lot of time just trying to lay out the photos in a way that I thought looked interesting and had an interesting composition. And then after that, I added in the text, which again, I really wanted to kind of experiment and push with. And so not only is the text kind of haphazardly placed, but it's also distorted, which I think again kind of goes with the whole feeling of like a nostalgic distortion. Which if you're interested in learning how to make this type of text effect, I actually have a video on that. So if you want, check that out. And if I'm being really honest, I'm not sure what kind of gave me the idea to kind of turn it into a, you know, VHS tape. But I guess it doesn't really matter because it still goes with the whole nostalgic factor. So maybe it wasn't necessarily needed, but I don't think it takes away anything. So overall, it's a pretty fun poster to make. So this design definitely isn't one of my best, but I do think it's fun and memorable. I don't remember what gave me the idea, but I had this thought pop into my head of someone kind of having a house for the top of their head. So just some kind of weird surreal collage, and I just wanted to kind of see if I could do that and put them together in a way that felt cohesive and it wasn't too jarring. So I guess that's how I ended up here. But after I got the imagery the way that I wanted to, it still felt empty, and so I wanted to add some typography into it. And that's when I got the idea of adding the word vacant into it, which to me is kind of funny because that's just like saying someone is empty-headed. But after I added in the word vacant, it still felt a little bit unfinished. And so I just wanted to add some kind of grunge textures just to kind of make it a little bit more chaotic and hopefully kind of bring it all together. I'm not sure if I like all of the extra kind of textures that I added. I feel like maybe it's a bit too much, especially because it kind of goes right over top of the image. But I also know that without it, it just felt a little bit empty. I guess it's just kind of weird because the face blends into the background. And so it just kind of creates a weird shape around it. And so for me, because I work in a lot of kind of grids and boxes, and that's just how I like to kind of organize things, it was just kind of weird to work with. I just couldn't figure out how to kind of balance it and make it feel like it was complete and done and everything felt well balanced. So overall, I think this poster turned out pretty good, but I guess there's still some things that I need to kind of learn and figure out how to do, even if it's not my strong suit. So this was another design that I'm really torn on. I think as a general poster design, I think it looks pretty good. I think the typography is interesting enough. It's stretched and kind of has some waviness, which kind of adds to the kind of water theme. So that works really good. We have a really nice photo here, which also kind of plays into the theme because she's standing in water. But every time I look at this poster, I feel like it's missing something. I actually recently came back to this poster a couple days ago before I posted it because I wanted to try to kind of give it a little bit of a touch up, and I just couldn't land on something that I felt really happy with. It's like one of those things where you try a bunch of things and just nothing really works out the way that you think it will. So eventually I just kind of had to come with terms with it and then just kind of let it be what it's going to be. Which, like I said, overall, I think it's a good poster. It just needs something, and I just still haven't quite figured that out yet. So this design is one that's actually grown on me. Whenever I first made it, I thought it was okay. It was just kind of one that I did, and I was like, oh, you know, this is more of just an experiment than something that I feel like really proud about. But honestly, now that I'm looking back at it, I think it's pretty good. I got to play around with typography, I got to use some labels, I got to use some cool images. And so really, I think it's just really fun. I think what's also nice about this poster is even though it's pretty grid-based, even with all the typography and the photos, you have this big type at the top that kind of breaks that up. It is also kind of an experiment in itself since it's kind of using different fonts and kind of being pushed together. But then you also have this label that kind of breaks up the grid between the two images on the bottom. And so I think that kind of helps to kind of add in a little bit more excitement than if it wasn't there, just because it's breaking apart that grid and adding in another layer of texture. So yeah, this was definitely a fun design to make, and I think it's grown with me over time. And this is the last design that I posted this month. Honestly, I'm really happy with how it came out. How I originally started this design is nothing like how it ended up. But I remember I was really just playing around with the type and just kind of like liquefying it and adding some effects and just kind of trying to come up with something weird that I thought would look cool. And I ended up with the text how you see it is now. But all the photography that I was working with at the time, it just wasn't really working together that well with it. And so I just kind of had to abandon what I was doing and what I thought was going to work and go for this look instead, which I also experimented with having the hands coming from the bottom instead of from the top. But I think this is way more interesting, and it also let me add some more typography in the bottom, which I guess you could say this poster is kind of a poster design for a song. One of my favorite bands, As Cities Burn, has a song called Contact. And really the song is just kind of a lot of thoughts about someone who's experiencing doubt with God. And one of the repeating lines of the song is this it? But to be clear, I was not trying to make a poster that was directly inspired by that song. It just so happened that the phrase worked really well together and it kind of fit with the aesthetic. Just something that's kind of weird, abstract, and introspective. Like you're trying to grasp something that you just truly can't. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with how this one came out. And that's all the posters that I had for the month of November. So let me know in the comments below which one's your favorite and if you learned anything by watching this video. And if you did learn anything from this video, I'd appreciate it if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video.